The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Association have said that prices will not recover in Canada until 2022. Hey, welcome back. My name is Tom Storey from the Storey team in Royal LePage, and this is the Storey Report, where we're going to look over the numbers for April 2020. So we'll get to the numbers right away. So year over year for April 2020, sales were down 67%. And new listings were down 64%. So the number that you're gonna see in the news all the time is gonna be the sales numbers being down. So they're down 67%. Again, not surprising, we're not supposed to be going outside. What happened here is it went from a want to sell or want to buy to a need to sell or need to buy. I was actually interviewed by Global News and CTV on this topic. I will put those interviews below. But the key thing to look at here is the new listings being down almost the same level as sales. So if those numbers continue to be close, so we had 67% down for sales, but 64% for new listings, prices should hold for a period of time. If we see new listing numbers increase, right, but sales continue to be down at that same level, that's when we're gonna start seeing decreases in prices. And year over year, the average price point was basically the same. It was about $1,000 more. But honestly, at this point, trying to look at pre-COVID versus during COVID numbers makes absolutely no sense. So if I were a buyer or seller right now, I would only want to focus on month over month numbers. So here's the real numbers in April 2020. Only compared to March 2020. So the first half of March was still very active until things kind of cooled off and everyone hit the pause button. So if you look just at average sale price, just month over month, we did see a 7% decrease. But what I want everyone to remember, and I talked about it before, anybody that sold their property in April was in a need to sell position for the most part. Either that or they just probably weren't getting great advice. So they needed to sell because they had likely bought the month before, and that's gonna be reflected in the numbers. Now these numbers, again, we don't have a lot. We're talking about 2 months of data here. So really, for me to give any real indication of what's gonna happen in the future, let's talk in 6 months and see how this all actually plays out. Something else to keep in mind is that the high end of the market, the luxury market, and I'll call that over $2 million in Toronto, a lot of those homes just stopped trading. So when the luxury market's not selling, it's significantly decreasing the average sale price. And the lower end of the market, which in Toronto would be under 600,000, there's still a whole bunch of sales happening in that pocket of pricing. Okay, so the CMHC report, they came out and they said that they don't believe that Canadian home prices will recover until late 2022. And when I was on CTV, they actually specifically asked me about this article and what I thought about it. I think on a macro level, they're right. If you look at Canada as a whole, all the different markets, what's going on, not just strictly how we're being impacted by COVID, but unemployment, you look at what's happening out west with the oil, like there's lots of things at play here. So I do agree with them. I think Canada as a whole, it's gonna take a while for prices to recover. But what I really think you should focus on, because you should never compare yourself on a macro level, it should really be micro. So what's going on in your segment? It's really like your few blocks going the other way. If you own a condo, what's happening specifically in your condo and at different price points. So, some areas of Toronto are still selling right now in multiple offers, but some, it would take a long time to get an offer on it. So it's really gonna depend. So macro is one thing, but micro is right now really where we should be spending our time educating ourselves on what's happening in our specific pockets. And there's a few final things I wanna cover here. So the first one is virtual buying. So we have sold properties through all of this that were 100% start to finish virtual. A lot of condo buildings in downtown Toronto just flat out ban showings, which again, I don't disagree with them. I think that makes a ton of sense. And if I lived in that building, I'd want the same thing. So we couldn't show properties. So all we had is the virtual tours, the floor plans. We were virtually staging properties and it did work, but most of those buyers that bought or in a need to buy position. So after this is done, whatever that means, when the economy is slowly opening, are people gonna be virtually buying properties? I think the answer is no. I think the greatest thing about real estate is that you can feel it, you can touch it, it's real, it's tangible, and I don't think anyone's really gonna wanna buy virtually if they don't absolutely have to. And just to wrap this up, just what I'm noticing on a day-to-day right now, the first kind of 4 to 6 weeks once this started, it was radio silence. Like, we had some sellers that needed to sell and were on the market, and it was at a point where, like, if you got a showing, it was the same feeling you used to get when you got an offer. That was the excitement level of just getting a showing. In the last 2 weeks, we've gotten a ton of calls on our listings, a ton of buyers that had put things on hold that really want to kind of set up, like, after this passes, whatever that looks like, when can we get our search started again? So I will say that buyer confidence has started to creep back into the market. Thank you so much for watching this edition of the Storey Report. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and follow us on Instagram. Have an awesome day, stay safe, and remember, home is where your story begins.